All right, I have a special guest with me today, Randall Wall. Randall is one of my best friends. We go back 17 years, maybe
I think so.
something like that. So I've been with Equity for 20 years. Actually, it's probably the full 20 years. It's just we weren't really close for, there was a couple years there. And then
We
uh,
took that trip to St. George, I think.
I remember that one very vividly. Yeah, we were both doing a training down in St. George. The reason why I'm excited to have Randall on with us today, and Randall, by the way, is one of the brokers here with Equity Real Estate. He's also one of the owners of the company. But the thing that excites me about bringing him to you guys today with this podcast is that he is the best, hands down, no contest, the best investor that I know. And his experience, he does incredible volume, even through the crash in 08. And correct me if I'm wrong, because sometimes our own memory tell us stories. But when the market crashed in 08, everybody's scrambling. And house values plummeted. It was a bad time for investors. If I remember correctly, didn't you still have a crew full time that you kept going?
Yeah. We didn't have a day off, so they worked the whole time. They never a day off, and we made a killing during that time. Those were some of our best years.
Yeah. So for an investor to pull that off in that market, you got to know your business. And not only that, but to be able to keep a crew going, that you're doing remodels and things like that, fixing places up. You're doing a lot of good in the world, quite frankly, taking older houses, fixing them up, providing solutions to people who are in bad spots, helping. And you have a lot of agents with this for a number of years. I don't know how long you were president of the Salt Lake Real Estate Investor Association. Was the title?
13 years.
13 years. And didn't you just pass that torch off recently?
I did, and I'm still on the board, but it was 13 years is long enough.
So tell me this. Now you've got a background, you had a background in mortgage lending, like I did, right?
Yeah.
But you were also a general contractor, weren't you? Or still are?
Yeah, I was the largest builder in Eastern Oregon.
Okay.
So.
And so you've got just this wealth of experience from the whole process that you bring to the table here, and all of that's helped you. Most agents won't be able to bring that to the table. They're not general contractors. They haven't had a background in mortgage lending. What would you say to an agent that was thinking about getting into investing? Like, where would you have them start?
Well, the first thing I'd say is do it. Just because it's good to jump in, and I'm kind of a fan of ready, fire, aim, because I've watched too many people die by analysis, paralysis, and so it's. I'd say starting out, there's a few things you can do that don't take any money at all. Wholesaling. You put a property under contract and sell the contract. I don't even bring earnest money to the table. In my contract, it says that whatever it is, $1,000 or $5,000, whatever amount of earnest money that I'm going to bring, it says is going to be there at closing. And so because we're doing it quick, we're closing usually in a few days to a week. But I had two properties in, I think it was end of May, 1st of June, that we bought for about 400,000 each. Put under contract for 400,000 each, and I sold one for 550 and the other one for 603, I think.
So when you mention things like that, Randall, and we talk about these creative ways to do things, I personally know, because we actually just filed a complaint against somebody for the way they were doing wholesaling.
Sure.
I personally know that a lot of people do these things incorrectly. It's not that they're wrong per se, but they certainly can be done incorrectly. And so, again, for a new person getting into it, I don't want to cross that boundary. I think they actually are just building a task force, like a wholesaling task force at the Division of Real Estate level. Have you heard that?
But if it is, it's probably for the third or fourth time, because they keep trying to get rid of it and it keeps getting shot down.
Yeah, I mean, there is a legitimate way to do it. And in our case, we had somebody that was selling it without ever having marketed it. There were a lot of things. He didn't deposit earnest money when he said he did. He was marketing the property without permission to market the property.
Yeah.
He was using the photos without having permission to do that. He didn't disclose that he was the
Buyer.
yeah. And and in Utah, that's required, that disclosure of interest there. So
Sure.
we had a lot of problems with him, but it was especially hard on the seller, our client, when they get a call from somebody else saying, do you know that this person is trying to sell your home? And it was for, X amount of dollars more than what they were selling it for. And that was kind of a shock to them and hard. So when you say this is, there's a lot of easy ways to do it. It might be easy for you. Where would somebody start though, so that they don't step across that line and start doing a bunch of crazy stuff? And
Well,
and let me just say one more thing. I personally know.
I would say a lot of it is get with somebody who's doing it. So
Okay, I know of some people. I won't name names. I've had them in my office. They've been agents in my office. I've approached them and said, hey, you're not doing this correctly. And rather than fix their mistakes, they left, went to another brokerage. Now I see their name being advertised as come here and talk to these experts. And I'm like, oh, that guy, he's not an expert, man. He's a line jumper. He's crossing that line. And I would hate for any of my agents to go there and hear that. So where would you start? Because some of these people being touted as experts are scary.
Yeah. So if you're an agent, you're held to a higher level than the average person is. Now we have about 7 pages of disclosures. And it's interesting because so many investors feel like they have to be borderline shady. And they don't want to mention that you could get a higher price if you fix it up, clean it out, list it on a multiple listing service. And that's the first thing I lead with. I tell people, I say, look, let me give you 3 options. I said, if you want the most money, let's clean it out, fix up anything that needs to be fixed, and let's list it on the multiple listing service, the MLS, and wait until a good buyer comes along. You'll make the most money. And I said, otherwise, my second option, I actually just did this last week, is, it looks like you need about $15,000 in repairs. So here's what I'll do. I want the listing. I will bring my crew in. You mentioned that I have a crew. I'll bring my crew in, and we'll spend up to $15,000. And I will upfront that money, but I'm going to want $2,000 in compensation on top of our actual costs, because I'm not charging for overhead and profit and all that kind of stuff. So I want to make $2,000 off of that, and I want the listing. And I said, or if you don't want to do anything with it, I'll take it as is. You don't have to clean it out. You don't have to make repairs, and I'll buy it for here's my price. Here's my my cash price. Which one would you like to pursue? Which way would you like to pursue? And then I got to be honest, it's really funny, but 95% of the people, they want the easy way, which is me buying it as is, not showing it, and it's hilarious because I met with these people, I think it was like 4th East and maybe, I don't know, 101st South or something, off at Darren Drive out in Sandy. And so I sat down with them and I penciled it out on paper with them and said, okay, this is what you'll get if we list it on the MLS. And, I said, otherwise, this is what I can pay for it. And they said, well, we're moving to Missouri and, in 2 months, and we just really need every dime. So I think we'll need to list it. And I was like, great. I'll come back in the morning with some listing paperwork and we'll list the property and we'll get it on the market for you. So I said my goodbyes, got my car, and drove about 200 yards to the stop sign, and the phone rang. And so I answered it and I said, hello. And it was these people. And they said, well, we've talked it over and we want to do it the easy way. So we'll take your cash offer. And it's really, it's like the 1 marshmallow, 2 marshmallow thing. They used to do a study, I'm 60. When I was in like the 3rd grade, they put a marshmallow in front of you and said, if you cannot eat that marshmallow for 10 minutes, we'll give you 2 or 3 marshmallows. Well, 80% of the kids all ate their marshmallow in the first, 5 minutes.
I've seen the study.
And people are no different. And so, investors serve a purpose because uh, I've got one I'm buying in Cottonwood Heights that it needs repairs. It needs a roof, it needs grass, it needs a kitchen, it needs a bathroom, it's got holes, in the walls, and they don't have the money to make those repairs, and it's more than like 15 grand because I don't really want to go more than that. It's kind of like where I peak out at when it comes to doing repair work and whatnot, for people, just because there's some problems with that. If I have to, I have to file a mechanics lien, and if they don't pay, and those kind of things. So I don't want to be out 50 grand, let's say.
Right.
And so for people like that, it works for it. But if you're an agent, you should get with a broker, or a brokerage that is familiar with it. Because I think at Equity, we've got in our wholesale, menu, I believe I've got all of the different things that I put in there, all the disclosures.
You've created the safe way to do it. And so one of the takeaways, if I can, from your stories that you've said, is as a new agent, if you're thinking about getting into this, over disclosing is the way to go. I mean, you want to disclose everything. I've even seen some investors that say, I intend to turn around and sell this property, and I intend to make a whole bunch of money. And, and they're just as forthright as they can be, like in your face, like, this is what I'm going to do. And people are like, okay, give me the cash, but the problem is, if you don't do that and you're trying to like sell it or something like this, these people get it, Thanksgiving dinner with their family around, and they're sharing stories. And I sold my house for this much. And like, ooh, that person took advantage of you. And I've had agents where they were helping the other person out, but then other people came in and they're like, ooh, they were taking advantage of you. And all of a sudden they're like, yeah, they did take advantage of me. If you've got language that's bold and in your face saying, I intend to make a lot of money doing this, and you have 3 options and you can pick which one that you like. If you choose this third option, I'm going to make a bunch of money. If you choose the first option, you can make a bunch of money, but you've got some work to do,
Sure.
So disclosure becomes
big thing. I mean, you always want to over disclose. And so actually I laughed a little bit because I think my disclosure says that I plan on making a lot of money, somewhere between 10,000 and $1 million.
Yeah.
And even on a $200,000 house. And it's like, they laugh at it, but my average flip is $70,000. And and when you have a couple wholesales that you're making 70 to 100 grand on, it's good that you've got that.
Yeah. Because it's true. People, after the fact, they forget the hole that they were in. They forget that they were 2 weeks away from losing their house to foreclosure or something like that. All of those things are conveniently forgotten. And you have to have that paperwork that says, look, I gave them options. I disclosed that I was going to make a lot of money if they chose this option. So yeah, disclosures are really important. And I think it's very important for, and you mentioned this, for agents to know that they are held to a higher standard. Some Joe Public, he might get away with a few things, and they're out there teaching stuff. But for real estate agents, you don't get away with it.
Yeah, you need a higher standard. Probably something else I'd look at. So wholesaling, the bar is pretty low because you're going to make some money. Usually, an average wholesale is probably like 10 grand. The highest one I've done is close to 100,000. I get 1 or 2 a year that are 60 to 95,000 probably. But and we've done up to like, I don't know, maybe 60, 70 a year of those. But the thing is, there's a lot of options in investment real estate. Seller financing. I talked to GT Title. They said that their seller finance transactions are up 500%. And we have done hundreds of those. I bought office buildings. We have, bought, I don't know, probably a couple hundred houses, homes, etc., properties, rental properties, office buildings, etc. And when, 2008, 2009 happened, I had one of my agents, Larry, she said, hey, Randall, my whole book of business has died. She went from doing like, 15 a year to nothing. And she was working with the Hispanic market. And so I said, let's do this. And so we contacted a local Hispanic radio station. And it was some show called Piolín por la mañana, something Piolín in the morning, right? Yeah. Very popular. And so we ran an ad that said, if you have $10,000 in a steady income, we'll find you a house. she went from doing 15 sites a year to between 20 and 30 a year.
Wow.
And, you know, because it's amazing. There's a lot of people that have cash, and a lot of Hispanics have cash because the guys that come and, you know, cut my lawn, one of them walked up to me and said, "Hey, Randall, would you help me buy a house?" I'm like, "Sure." You know, and it doesn't have documentation, you know, it doesn't have the paperwork. And I said, "How much could you put down?" And this isn't the owner, this is just the guy pushing the lawnmower. And he says, "Well," he says, "I have $100,000, but I think the most I could feel comfortable putting down would be 80,000. You know, so yeah, I can help you find a house. And out of the flips that we're doing, so I think, you know, a few weeks ago we had 10 flips going, and, you know, I've got 3 or 4 crews that are working on it. About half of them are seller financed because we say, "Here's our cash price, or would you like to seller finance it to us for, you know, 6 months?"
So for people that don't know, tell us why seller financing is so attractive. Because after, like, I've got great credit, right? I've got great credit. I've got some money in the bank. Why don't I go and get a loan for 5 houses? I can do it for a couple of houses, right? I could buy my next house as an investment property and the next one as an investment property. A lot of people don't realize there's a cap on that from the bank. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
So I like seller financing because I hate paperwork, to be honest. And there's 2 reasons. I just hate paperwork, and I just don't like dealing with it. And so, and there are caps. You know, there's different lending caps where you can get 1 or 10 or whatever, you know, whatever else. But there's no cap on how many houses you can sell to finance. In fact, I've never had anybody even ask to see my credit, you know, my credit score or credit report on it. If they like you and trust you and you look like you'll perform, they'll do business with you. And so, you know, that's one thing. It's really easy, and you could do an infinite number of them. So long as they're cash flowing, you know, you could do 1,001, and they're fast and they're easy. You could do them in a day instead of, you know, the 4 or 5 weeks it's going to take for a regular loan. Right now, the big attraction is kind of what it is for me as a flipper. So I pay 12% interest, simple interest on, you know, most of the money. Even if I loan the money to my own company, I pay 12 myself 12%, but we pay 12% to, like, my parents and, you know, and other people that lend us money on these. And so seller financing is a lot easier because most of these loans are down around 3 and 4% with the occasional high twos. And so if you know, my son, you know, is able to buy a house and his payments are $3,000 a month at 3.5%. Right now, it's 7% and 7 plus. That doubles your payment. You know, I mean, it's like $6,000 a month. And so there's a huge attraction because every 1% increase in the interest rate takes out about 11% of the buyers. And so we've had, you know, almost 4%. Well, that's 44%, you know, the market that's disappeared. And so with seller financing, you can reintroduce that 44% back into the market and give them homes that they can actually afford. Or if you're an agent, you want to be holding rental property. That's how you get rich. You don't get rich as an agent. And I've closed, like, I don't know, my best year is 83, 84 transactions. But, you know, you make a lot of money. You're never going to get rich doing that. You get rich by holding rental properties. And seller financing is the way to do it.
So another lesson, I guess I can extrapolate just to be very direct, is the better, even if you're not going to be an investor yourself, the better you understand this, you can better serve your clients because you can solve problems for them. And
Yes.
that's even helping them to be investors, or simply you're helping somebody buy a home that otherwise would not be able to because you understand how to put together a seller finance deal or a lease with an option to purchase or something like that. You understand different solutions. You got different flavors of ice cream. You're Baskin Robbins. You're not just vanilla, right? You've got 31 flavors and you can solve different problems for different people, which makes you more valuable as a real estate agent. And then you can do that yourself, which, like you said, that kind of creates wealth for you. And once you're doing that and creating wealth for yourself, then all of your friends are going to look at you and say, "Hey, tell me what you're doing." And there's a whole new client base that's just populated, auto-populated, if you will, because people are drawn to success. They see you doing something. They want to know how it works. And so, I mean, you go out and you teach seminars, right?
Yep.
And you'll fill a room. How quick does it take you to fill a room?
It's pretty fast. Um, it depends on how much I'm charging. I was the first guy that was really doing wholesales in any volume, or sorry, short sales in any volume in Utah the last time around. I had like 3 floors in a building with people working them, and I got to where I was doing it for our company and like 3 other companies and ourselves. And so I thought I'm going to teach a class, and so I charged $300 a person. I had 100 people show up immediately, so it was good. And um, I mean, marketing is where it's at. All agents, I gotta say, I hate to say this, but it's true. All agents marketing is really bad. And so the most successful class I ever taught was all agent marketing sucks and what you can do about it. And I had probably 6 or 10 brokers or other brokerages that attended, and the room would only hold 100. And I had 315 people signed up for it in like 2 days. And
Wow.
so I taught that class 3 times in the same day. And so it was, it's kind of funny, but it's about learning how to do different things. And I started off with the cheap stuff, door knocking and sphere of influence and those kind of things. And then we've put out, I think I've done more marketing than any agent in Utah history. Millions of postcards. If you haven't got a postcard from us, I'd be surprised, because we've been doing like as many as 100,000 a month, but usually around 60,000 a month for years, for door hangers, postcards, and so it's just, it's a good business, but you don't have to do any of that. If like you said, if you keep some tools in your tool belt, and I look at every property. So when I go up to a property and I talk to somebody, if it's not a clear listing, or a clear buy, I'm thinking, okay, there's 5 things that I think of. Can I wholesale it? Can I flip it? Fix it and flip it. Can I sell or finance it for a long-term hold? Or can I do a sandwich, lease option on it? Or can I collect a commission? And so instead of one thing, it gives me, 5 things. And I had an agent that came to me once who said, Randall, he owned the home, I think it was Home Vestors, the Ugg Buys Ugly Houses guy.
Yeah.
And he says, it's cost to me 20 grand a month and I'm barely making it. And I asked him, I said, so Kip, how many appointments are you going on a month? He says, I don't know, 50 to 100. And I said, what are you doing with all this? And he was just trying to do it as an investor.
Yeah.
And so I said, you need to get your license. So he got his license, and he was doing so much that he started a team, and they made a lot more doing real estate commissions than they ever did during the investor side, because it's just one more tool, right?
Yeah.
And that's it. The more you know, the more you make. The more you learn, the more you earn.
So speaking of the more you know, we're in talks right now because you've got an actual program that you sell, right?
Yeah, we've got one. It's and we do a lot of different things. I've coached like Nudge and Prosper coaches and Rich Dad coaches, because they're all located down in Utah County. Right. And so we've done a lot of that. And so I worked with one of my best friends, Dakota, and we've got a pretty good system. And so Dakota and Alan actually been my agents, but they're investor agents, and so it's a pretty good system.
And we've had talks. I've talked with you about bringing a link over that to the eliteagenttraining.com site, where I have my program, and that available, making your program available for agents there as well. So, if they want to learn how to do real estate, all the stuff with residential real estate, they've got my stuff. If they want to specialize in investors, they can buy your program as an add-on. And I think education is where it's at, because not only, you hear these terms wholesaling. I think a lot of people that heard wholesaling maybe don't even know what it is. And I think there's some agents out there that don't know what seller financing is, or what's the difference between seller financing and a lease option. What are the pros and cons of both of them? And so So education is really where it's at, because you might know that you've got a toolbox there, but if you open it up, you flip the lid on the toolbox and you're looking at a bunch of random tools and you don't have any idea how they're supposed to be used, then
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I probably should have explained that. So wholesaling, I'll hit two of those, but wholesaling is where you go out and you find a property at a price below what you think you can sell it for to a flipper usually. And
yeah,
so let's say I put the property under contract for 300,000, and I put 1,000 in earnest money on it, and I tell them I'm going to close in 10 days. And so what I do is, so it's under contract for 300,000. I go find somebody who'll pay me 330,000 for it.
and they
And
pay
so,
$30,000 and they buy the contract.
right, and they step in, earnest money, purchase price for the house, everything. I don't ever have to do it. And sometimes, I mean, I do buy a lot of them, and it's funny because I keep hearing you, like you told me about and Scott Rabin told me the same thing about somebody who was doing it badly, the wholesaling thing. But I think I bought every house in 20 years but one that I put under contract. Where some guys, they'll put anything under contract, can't find anybody to sell it to, and then they back out, which,
Yep.
that's just wrong. And it leaves, people in a bad position.
It is
And
wrong. And anybody listening to what you just described as wholesaling, where you put it under contract for 300 and then sell the contract to 330, everybody's sitting there thinking, well, aren't the sellers upset because now there's somebody else coming in at 330 that's closing on that same contract? Why didn't they get 330? Doesn't that seem wrong? A lot of people think that. And again, this is where the disclosures that we mentioned earlier come into play. And so, yeah, if you disclose that right up front, you tell people this is what we're going to be doing. I've got an investor network that they're looking for stuff like this. So I'm going to put it under contract. You're giving me the authority to advertise it to other people, and I intend to make money for this. And they're going to come in and they're going to probably invest and flip it and even make more money on top of it,
Sure.
But that's what it is. And as long as it's all fully disclosed, you're okay. Where you get in trouble is when you go under contract for 300, pose as a legitimate buyer, and your intention is never to buy it, and you're out marketing it, and then they see their home being marketed by somebody else. They're like, whoa, what the crap is this?
Yeah, so wrong.
Yeah, that's wrong. And that's what leaves a bad taste. That's what leads to complaints and things like that. So no, I like the way that you do it. And Scott Rabin, as you mentioned, he's actually one of the ones that he let me know that, hey, somebody's out marketing your property. So we've been in talks with him, and he's dropped your name a few times. He's like, yeah, you can do this the right way. Like Randall Wall, I work with him a lot. He knows how to do it the right way. So there is a right and a wrong, and you can't just look at wholesaling and say they're all wrong, and that removes people's freedom. If I go up to somebody and I say, here's your options, A, B, C, which one works best for you? And I fully explain, A means you're fixing it up, getting it ready to sell. That's your most money right there. But you got to do this work, and it's going to take you a few months, and it may be 6 months. B is I come in and I do some of the repairs with my crew, but here's what that's going to cost you. And that's going to take you 3 months instead of 6 months. Or a week from now, you can have cash and move on with your life and, run away from the mafia or whatever your reasoning is. It gives them an option, and that shouldn't be outlawed. We shouldn't be inviting the government to come in and take away. We're not talking about realtors' rights or investors' rights. We're talking about the public's rights. And as long as the public has those full disclosures, they should have the right to choose and say, you know what, give me the cash now, give me the money, I'm going to run. You remember that? Was it Let's Make a Deal, where they had all the suitcases on?
Yeah.
And like halfway through, I'm like, take the money and run, just go. And I'm very conservative, I'm like, hey, you made your 20 grand, go. But they always wanted to go for the million. They almost always lost. There's a lot of people out there that are like, I want to take the money and run. As long as you've got that full disclosure, then you're doing them a favor. You're helping them out, and you're providing a valuable service to the community.
And there's so much you can do, if you know a little bit. Like it's so I always tell my agents to tell, equity agents, I put this out to all of our agents, in the past, and taught a few classes on this, but rental property, you can get $100,000 tax write-off right away. Like if you bought it the 27th of December of last year in 2022, um, I can get 100 grand on almost any property that you write off right away against your taxes. If you're an agent, that means you're not paying any taxes on $100,000 worth of commissions. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, it's about learning. That's why I love your program. You've got a good program. It's focused on helping agents grow and do more business, and and then because the more you learn, the more you earn.
Yeah. And I look at it like from a business decision, right? One of the very first, I was a struggling agent when I started. I was 8 months with my first company. We were at a 60-40 split, and 2 or 3 days to get a broker to respond to you, no training up being offered. And
Yeah.
I went to a seminar and I came away with two things. Okay, two quotes. One of them was learn to make business decisions, not emotional decisions. And I took that with me. And the first business decision that I made is I went in to talk to my broker and said, hey, can I negotiate a higher percentage, better than 60-40? And he got mad at me, and it shocked me. It completely shocked me. I thought, why is he getting upset? Like, you're taking half my commission, not giving me anything. I think this is reasonable. And he got mad at me. And that's actually why I left and found equity real estate. So, and then the rest is history. And so all but 8 months of my entire career, I've been with this company. But it was because I tried to make a business decision of negotiating a higher split for myself. And so
I think you're an investor at heart.
yeah, when we look at it in this frame though, and somebody's like, okay, I want to do better in real estate. Okay, you can spend $1,500 and buy this program. What's the return on investment? Well, if you ever closed even one deal, you've got a 10 times return on investment. Average transaction size is 500,000. You make 3% on that. That's a $15,000 commission, and you invested 1,500. That's if you ever closed one deal as a result from the extra knowledge that you acquired, right? Same thing with your program. You sell your program for, is it?
Hey, the first one's like $400.
$400 and $500 or whatever. If that extra information, even if you're not an investor yourself, but it enables you to, with a client, say, oh, well, this doesn't work for you. What about this? And you've, like you said, you walk in and you've got 5 options that you can provide somebody, and a regular real estate agent has one. How much? And you shared that story of that investor. They went out, they got their license, and they're actually making more from real estate because they simply have more tools. They have more things to offer.
Yeah, more to offer. And yeah, you should negotiate everything. I mean, I learned this. I was 15 years old. I've been like 6'4", 180 pounds since I was 15. And so I worked for all these other real estate investors that were fixing houses. And this guy named Larry Nilsson, he was brilliant, but he would go and negotiate the prices of hamburgers and fries. Like the guy would buy me dinner, and he would go and he'd say, it looks like those have been sitting in the rack for a while. And, there's nobody out here. There's nobody in line. How about we do a 2-for-1 deal here? And I'm talking like McDonald's and Burger King and, whatever else. And he got it. I can't remember them ever saying no. And so, I took that lesson home, and I was like, everything. Nordstrom's. I was in Nordstrom's yesterday. Do you know Nordstrom's will give you 10 to 15% just by asking?
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's just like, yeah, is there like a manager's discount or something? And yeah, you buy oh yeah, we can give you an additional 10% on that, So it's interesting, but there's very few places I've been where you can't negotiate.
Even the grocery store. You go
Yeah.
through the grocery store now and they're like, are you a member? What's your member's number? And I'm like, I'm not a member here. Don't you have a card or something you could maybe scan for me? And they're like, oh, sure. They scan
Yeah.
the card and you get 10% off of everything, or you get the sales price. Because yeah, why not? Right. So,
Yeah.
so if we wanted to summarize some of the key points, if you're going to get into this, disclose, disclose, disclose. right?
Yep.
Even if you're not going to get into it to learn, right? Even if you're not going to be an investor yourself, get into it to learn, because you can provide more solutions for your clients. Even if they're not investor clients, you can provide more solutions to them that might open the door to opportunities that otherwise would be closed to them. And then thirdly, if you want to build wealth, then you can be getting into it for yourself. And I think all of that hinges on get the knowledge, right?
Amen. It's so true. It's so true. I watched, the last downturn, and so many people had rental properties or extra properties, and they got out of the business because they lost money, and couldn't refinance or whatever. And the sad thing is, if you have something bad happen to you, and you have two choices. One is you either, treat it like college where you paid some dues, right? You paid some fees and you got an education, or you call it an evil anecdote and oh, it was horrible. I lost money, you know, and you never do it again. And it makes me a little sad because the people that do that could be doing so much more. So here's my choice of evil anecdote. This is where greed was good. So Gordon Gekko, greed is good.
Yeah.
So I bought two houses at the same time. I bought this duplex by Liberty Park, and then I bought another house over in Glendale, not the best area. But I'm like, I got greedy, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to flip both of these. Well, I did the one in Glendale first. Took me forever. It was the first one I did. It was the longest one. I lost $50,000 in cash money, and that's not a good thing, right? But I learned a lot, and I learned what to do and how to do it, and I learned what mistakes could or should be avoided. And so when I went to the duplex, by Liberty Park, I made $138,000 on it. And then I made money ever since. And I think I probably, grossed millions of dollars off of what I learned from that one $50,000 loss. And so, you keep trying, go to the local investor association. It's cheap to become a member. They, educate you every month, but don't give up just because you lost money the last time around. Yeah, it's scary. I get it. I lost almost $1 million in Park City over COVID because they closed the market down. I was like,
I remember that.
It was horrible, but we did so well with everything else. We didn't even, hardly notice it. And so, you just don't give up, and just, keep going until you succeed. And you will succeed, if you just keep going.
So what you did is you just described me, for a moment of vulnerability for myself. My first marriage was ending. That was horrible to me. This was actually at a time when you and I became close, because I remember you were charging $500 an hour for one-on-one consulting.
Yeah.
And you invited me to go to lunch with you. We went to a little Mexican restaurant down by, was it Valley Fair Mall? I can't remember the name of the mall. But we went there, and I was like, I don't have $500 to pay this guy for for his time. And you proceeded to overwhelm me with kindness. And you just said, you know what? I've been there, and you're going to be okay. And we talked, and ever since then, I just knew that this is a genuine person. This is a person who, it isn't about money for you, which is kind of funny with the numbers that we're talking about here.
Yeah.
As long as I've known you, it's never been about the money.
No.
And it wasn't about the money that day. You didn't ask for anything. In fact, you got my meal, which blew me away, because you certainly didn't need to. Nobody else would have dared to ask for your time like that. And I didn't even ask. You just volunteered. You saw somebody hurting, and you stepped in, and you helped me. You took care of me, and you've had a special place in my heart since that day. And I don't know if you remember that day as clearly as I do, but I do, because it was a dark moment in my life. But at the time I can't remember, I think it was 4 different properties. One was a triplex. So yeah, I think I had 6 different tenants total. And I'm too soft I was trying to manage them myself. This is the lesson that I learned. I don't manage properties. I need to hire a property management company. I negative cash flow almost 100,000 that year, trying to keep, because the market had crashed in 08. I tried to keep 6 or 7 other families afloat during that time that none of them paid rent for an entire year. And I carried them all for a year. And I just thought, I can't do this. And, for me, more than anything, I needed peace in my life, especially at that time of my life. The money wasn't important to me either. Yeah, if I'd held on to those properties, I'd be a lot wealthier today, but I needed peace. I desperately needed the peace. And so I changed my focus. I shifted gears, and I thought, you know what? I can't remember who it is. It's a snowball effect. Dave Ramsey talks about it. And it's this, where you start here and you just pay stuff off. I wanted the peace of being out of debt. And so I did that for my 44th birthday. I paid off my house. I'd paid off credit cards. I'd paid off cars, paid off my house for my 44th birthday. And that feeling, and I didn't have any investment properties, but I loved that feeling.
Sure.
Now you fast forward a few years and I'm thinking, I understand at the moment I did my best. I understand the dark place that I was in. But man, if I'd had a property manager,
you have one now.
I would be doing so much better. Yeah. And so here I am listening to you and thinking I should get back in the game as well. This is something that I know how to do the stuff. I do.
Yeah.
I've valued the peace so much, but now I'm getting a little bit older. And because of the knowledge, my peace isn't as threatened with the idea of getting a few things. I know I can have property manager do the hard and scary things like sending out eviction letters or something. So yeah, I appreciate you talking with me today. It makes me consider my own life as well. And I don't fault anybody for not wanting to do it themselves, because they value that peace or whatever. But I do fault people in this career, in this industry, that hide from the knowledge. They say, you know what, that's not for me, because it's not about you. It's about providing solutions for your people.
You can help so many more people out if you know how to do more things.
Yeah. And you can help them out.
It's yourself, but it's your clients, it's your buyers, it's your sellers. It's like, if you've got buyers that bought at the peak of the market, a year ago, the market hasn't gone up. Houses aren't worth more today than they were a year ago, and at least not in Salt Lake County, within most of the ranges. But and so there they are, they're getting divorced, or they've got job loss, or something else is going on. Well, they can't bring the 20 or 30 grand to the table that it might take for real estate agent commissions. So, so you're able to help that seller and say, look, I've got a plan, and you can do a seller finance. And then, we can help a buyer out who may not, maybe they went through a divorce. I actually did one of these with a guy who was involved in one of these, and a truck driver. He had $100,000 to put down, but his credit was shot because he'd just gone through a divorce. Mm-hmm. And so, there you go. You match them up together. You got seller who's selling. The truck driver's got 100 grand, that he's put, skin in the game, and both people are happy.
Yeah. So that would be my, if I can make the last word, I guess today is, you're somebody that knows more about this than anybody else. It's one of the reasons that you're my go-to person. If ever I have an investing question, if ever I have, if I'm second guessing something in that world, you're the person that I go to. And so my closing comment would be to anybody, get the knowledge. Once you have the knowledge, then you can decide what you want to do with it. If you want to be an investor, if you want to help other investors, if you just want to be a more effective real estate agent by providing new options for the people that you already know and love, get the knowledge first. That would be my closing argument to this. Do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to wrap up with?
It's funny because you talked about, me and doing this business. If I So this might get edited out, but if I was going to say anything that's not politically correct at all, is if I had a choice for a different career option, I'd probably be a preacher. But and I think I preached real estate for long enough now. But it never hurts to pray over your business. That'd probably be the best advice that I think I've ever given anybody is, pray over your business. I have a number of agents in my branch that I manage who have said that's the best thing I've ever told them. So I think that'd be it. Other than that, just don't give up. It's kind of like Galaxy Quest. Never give up, never surrender.
All right. We'll end on that note. Randall, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you.
Thanks, Eric.
And that's a wrap for today's episode. We hope you found the discussion valuable. Remember, if you're looking to take your own real estate career to the next level, be sure to visit eliteagenttraining.com for our exclusive training program. It doesn't matter if you're a brand new agent or a veteran in the industry. If you're looking to increase your business, this program will get you there. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe to our podcast for more valuable insights and tips. Until next time.